There are a few different ways to start a new thread when you're working on an embroidery project. My personal favorite and the easiest method to start will only work if you plan on using an even number of threads. So if you are going to be doing stitch work with 2, 4, 6, etc. threads, then this is how you would do it. I'm going to pretend I'm going to do some stitch work here with 2 threads. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to cut my thread length to be twice as long as I want my actual thread to be. So here is the actual length that I want my finished thread to be that I'm going to be working with. So I'm actually cutting it twice as long as that length. Now I'm going to go here and I'm going to pick my threads apart, and instead of picking 2 threads off, I'm going to pick off half as many. So instead of 2 threads, 2 divided by 2 is 1. I'm going to pick off 1 thread. So there, I have 1 thread. I'll put the others off to the side. And now I'm just going to fold that thread in half. So I'm going to bring its 2 cut ends together, get them kind of evened up there, and have it folded in half. Now I'm going to just thread this through my needle here. So there I have my needle now threaded, and you'll see that as it's threaded, the short side, the side that I'm not really immediately stitching with, it has the cut ends, and the long side, the part I'm actually stitching with, is the side that has the thread folded in half. It has that kind of loop to it right there that you can see. So I'm now going to go and put my needle through my fabric and bring it up from the bottom up. And as I pull it through, I'm not going to pull it all the way. I'm going to leave a little bit sticking out on the back there. I'm going to go just a couple threads over, go back down, and I will pull that. And then as I start pulling this through, I'm just going to pop my needle right through the loop formed by my threads being folded in half, and then pull that snug. And then the only thing to remember is you don't want to come up in the exact same spot where your thread went down. So then if that's where I want my stitch to start, I'll just go another thread or 2 over, and then I'll come up like that. And there you'll see my stitch is now started, and I can begin to embroider as I want with no long strings to deal with on the back. Now, as I said, that first method only works if you're working with an even number of threads or strings. So what happens when you need to start some stitch work with an odd number of threads, if you're working with just 1, 3, 5, etc. threads? So there's a couple different ways you could also do that. So one method is I could simply tie a knot here at the end with a very short little bit hanging off of there, and then basically start it the same way I did that first method, where I come up through the middle, go back down a couple threads over, and then put my needle through the loop formed by having that knot on the end. I will admit, though, in embroidery, that method of starting is generally looked down on a little bit. It can lead for some unwanted texture on the back of your fabric, and it can make the back of your stitch work look a little sloppier than you want it to. The more common way to start your stitches when you have an odd number of threads is to come up and just pull your thread until you've got maybe about an inch, maybe a little more of string left on the back. And you're just going to leave that there. Kind of hold it in place with your finger, and then just start your stitch work, and just don't let this pull through any more than you want it to. So I'm just going to do a little back stitch here. So I've come down, and now my next stitch is going to be coming up a little ways further down. And as I do that on the back, what I want to do is I want to have that loose thread get sort of basted down or tied down by my stitch work as I create it. So as I pull this down, you'll see it's going over the thread and it's starting to hold it into place. So then I come back here, I do my back stitch there, and then I go forward to my next stitch, and as I come up, I look at the back, and I'm going to kind of check here at what's going on with my thread, and I'm going to grab it and I'm just going to kind of fold it over to make sure it's traveling underneath where this stitch is going to tighten down. And I just keep doing that until I'm done, until that whole back end is tightened down. So I come up here, I look at the back, and again, I kind of make sure that thread is going to be passing through where that stitch is going to tighten down, and then I pull it down, and it pulls it down. And then now, along the back, my thread has been anchored into place, and that's not really going anywhere. And that's all there is to starting a new stitch.